All right, we're back and we have figured out what to do next. I ordered a window a few weeks ago that is not scheduled to arrive for another 8 weeks. And I made some phone calls and realized that that is how things are in the window world right now. So I'm not gonna get a window any sooner, and we are not gonna wait for that window to arrive. We're going to carry on with our framing. We're gonna frame out the window box here on the exterior wall. We're gonna frame in the stud wall there, and we're just gonna move on. Anyway, we're gonna cue the time lapse and get to work on this. Shortly after I recorded this part of the video, I got an email from Lowe's saying that my window order had been canceled, and that was pretty discouraging. But I called my local Lowe's and asked them if they could help me or tell me why it happened. They couldn't really answer the question of why, because I had placed the order online and not at the store. But they were able to tell me that another Lowe's in Tulsa had the window I was looking for. And so I got in the car immediately and went and bought the window. So later in this video, you're going to see me actually installing the window. What I'm doing right now is building a frame for the window. This frame is going to be attached to the structure of the building, and we are going to nail the window to this frame from the outside once we're ready for that part of the process. So we're getting the frame installed, getting that nailed into the structure itself, and then we're going to start working on framing in the stud wall. I know I've said it before many times, but I love the feeling of cleaning up after a job, I guess even in the middle of a job. So now I am measuring and removing a little bit of foam there to fit the first stud in. And then I get to work measuring for the rest of the studs. And I realized that everything was pretty level here, so I was able to cut all the studs at right about the same height. And now I had to figure out what I was going to do to ensure that the window frame on the stud wall would be lined up perfectly with the window frame on the exterior wall there, because there was an inch or so of space between the two. So what I did was I cut some plywood strips and nailed them, as you see here, to the inside of the window frame. And I may have originally planned on building the interior part of the window frame directly around these plywood strips, but what I ended up doing was I used them to get good measurements, and then you're going to see me in a moment here. I'm going to start building this part of the wall actually on the floor, and then I'm going to install it. And you're going to see I actually build it not like laying down on the floor, but standing up on the floor here, which was nice. This is the bottom sill and the two king studs, I think is what they're called. The king studs go the full length, and the jack studs are supporting the bottom sill attached directly to the king studs. There, I cut a board to fit up there and then realized that I needed a header. You'll see me install that later. Now we'll remove that plywood, get the nails out, and
and then carry on. This worked out really well. I feel like I got the inside window box lined up quite well with the outside window box, and I think it's going to be nice and easy to do the trim when that time comes. So there I'm installing studs. This is my stepdad, Troy. My mom and Troy were visiting while I did this part of the video. Now this is the next day, and the reason it's the next day is because I cut my header too short, and I only had one 2x6, and so I had to go the next day and get another 2x6 and build a new header. That was a real bummer. There's a reason why they say measure twice, cut once. I like this part of the video with Lorena running around talking. Now we're installing the cripple studs. These are the short stud pieces that transfer weight from the top plate down onto the header. Now doing the double top plate. I had to finagle that a little bit. I've said before in another framing video that it's really hard to work up in that cramped space there between the pitch of the roof and that top plate. Can't get the nail gun in there, and it's even hard to get the hammer in there. But you got to do what you got. You got to do what you got to do. So this board was the last piece of lumber for the interior walls. It felt so good to finish with the framing, big part of the project. And now we're going to jump ahead a couple months and get to the window installation. So the first thing you're going to see me do here is cut out the metal from inside the window frame with an angle grinder. So now we're finishing the cut outside, and there's no audio because it was extremely windy and the audio came out real poorly. And unfortunately, my camera battery died right after I cut that piece out. And so here I am doing the trim. I couldn't wait for my camera battery to charge because I was racing daylight, and I'm really bummed I can't show you the actual installation of the window, but I'll tell you about it after I tell you about this trim here. This is metal J channel. It was left over, I assume, from when the previous owners had this building put up, and there was just enough to do this window. I actually had to use two pieces to do the bottom here, but there was enough to do the sides and top, and it came out really nicely. I can't wait for you to see at the end of the video how this turned out. Now, what happened with the window? Well, I originally thought I was going to be able to just unscrew the panels and kind of bend and finagle them a little bit and get the nail fin on the window behind the sheet metal. But that was not happening because these panels were covered with rigid spray foam insulation. And so they were not budging or bending. And I just had to take them off and scrape the foam off and get the window installed and then put the panels on after. So that was kind of a bummer. We're going to have to re-insulate these two little sections here above and underneath the window. But that's fine. We got it done, and it looks great, and it provides a lot of light in the shop, which is nice. So here in a minute, you're going to see me. I'm going to have to cut the panel a couple times, actually 3 times to fit it on. The second panel, I had kind of learned how much I needed to cut, and so I only had to cut that once, thankfully. My girls really loved playing in that opening there. They were sad when I had to cover it back up. They were, I think, pretending that it was a door. Now I try a couple times to fit the panel. It doesn't work. I cut it. I got my wife to help me to try to get this into place. But as I mentioned, it was not going to fit, even with 2 pairs of hands. So I had to take it down and cut it again, and then again a 3rd time. And I was kind of working frantically at this point, so I wasn't moving the camera to capture all of the action. I'm real sorry about that. But daylight, as you can see, was wasting away and hasting away, and I needed to get finished. So I got it cut. I get my headlamp on and screw the panel back in place. It wasn't quite as dark in real life as it is here in the video, but it was dark enough that I needed that headlamp. There you saw the sparks flying as I cut the second panel and got that installed. And then I do the final piece of trim. I think I do the final piece of trim with the panels installed. And I'm kind of finagling with the corners of the trim there, trying to make sure everything looks nice. And I got it done. Got it done before I had to go to bed, so that was good. So yesterday we installed this window. I think it went pretty well, all things considered. It was a bit of a challenge. We did have to take the insulation off of our metal, and we're going to have to replace that. But you live and you learn. Hindsight is 20/20 and all of that. But we've got a window in. It looks good. It looks nice outside. And so yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.